Now, when you think back to your childhood, maybe some of the earliest memories that you have in your life, um, are there any sorts of sights, sounds, or smells that you recall when
I
you think
will
back to growing up in that post-war period?
I will give you three very, very clear memories that I have. The first, which is probably the earliest memory that I have, was we had been out of the ghetto. We were living with some Christian family, and the memory is sort of skewed and fuzzy, but there had been an uprising in Warsaw. There were partisans roaming the streets, and my father had been roaming the streets looking in garbage cans for food. Quite literally, there were bombs that killed some horses, and he was there cutting meat from one of the horses. And a couple of Germans walked by, and one of them just quite casually shot my father in the back, which sounds a lot more dramatic than the ultimate outcome. He fell down, he pretended to be dead, and my mother was standing in the doorway of a house clutching me, and I could feel what felt like raindrops falling on my head, and of course it was tears. And then when it got dark, we could see this shape just humping up and humping down and moving toward us. It turned out that the bullet had taken an upward trajectory, probably not a full load in the cartridge, I don't know. But he wasn't even really badly hurt. It was a finger-shaped scar on his back for the rest of his life, but something that was easily taken care of at home. So that was my first memory. And that
How old would you think you were at that time?
I was about 2.5. I was already speaking very clearly, so when you talk, I gather your memories are formed more than if you're pre-verbal. So that was one, and that stayed with me well into my 40s or 50s in the form of dreams that I had. I would, say, be walking into a bank, and there was a man in front of me in a white shirt, because that's what my father was wearing, was a white shirt. And I knew what was going to happen. And a robber comes in and shoots the man, and this big red blossom appears on the back of his shirt. Or when I started watching westerns in America, a wagon train, and the Indians attack, and the man who is driving the wagon that I'm in is shot in the back, and the blossom on the back of his shirt. There were several dreams like that, so that was something that stayed with me for a long, long time. The second thing was this is kind of disgusting. It was close to the end of the war. There was no food, and we were in a cellar with some Polish family, I guess. The cellar was quite crowded during bombings, and I had a need to be put on the pot, and there wasn't enough food in my intestines, so my large intestine fell out because it was completely empty. And the old granny who was there, she was fazed by nothing, just stuffed my intestine in. And I remembered the horrible pain of it. But that was another very strong memory. And the third, and I don't know exactly where that fits chronologically, was when we were Warsaw was being bombed to smithereens, and the bombs were called cows in Polish, krowy, because they made this mooing sound as they came down. And we were in a house that was a brick house, pre-war. Well, you've seen those. Very strong buildings. And in the cellar, it was held up by these big concrete pillars. And one of the cows hit the house right down the middle. And everybody on one side was killed. Everyone on the other side of the pillars survived. And we just happened to be within the other side. And the dust that came down was, I just remember choking and coughing and not being able to catch my breath. And I have, it's not really asthma, but I do have a slight bronchial problem, perhaps acquired right then and there, I don't know. And if I have a head cold and my nasal passages are blocked or I need to cough, I'm not in my nice big bed here. I'm in the cellar and I'm choking. And I wake up not quite screaming, but so that's the third of my three very clear memories